Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and bienvenue, of course, to the Clash Bash Invitational. I am Uber here, of course, freshly returned from a stint in France, and I'm here with Ethan Van Sant. What's going on? You have been in Ireland. You've been jet setting yourself lately, mate.
Yeah, no, I wasn't quite in France so recently as you. I was up there for the Pro Tour, but most recently I had a very nice vacation out there in Dublin and Belfast, met some community members out there, and it was just a lot of fun. So two world travelers back on their home territory to bring you all some Clash gameplay. And this one's actually pretty exciting because this is the first in the second round of the winners bracket. We've got everyone who's won their first match in that first round of 8 now moving on. And this one's pretty exciting. We got Chane versus Dash, two very aggressive decks, piloted by two fantastic community members as well in Metrics metagame, Wes Wilson on Dash, and then Mo Bogsley, Mark Johnson on Chane. Pretty exciting, I think.
I mean, listen, if you're getting Mo Bogsley off of Kano for any reason, it has to be for an extremely good deck. So great to see Mo Bogsley piloting that one. And of course, yeah, we saw Wes kind of dismantle Tommy Fresh on that Levia in that first round. The raw aggression that you can get out of Dash, even in a format like Clash, of course, which you can find the rule set below if you're unfamiliar with it. It's just pretty insane the kind of stuff you can do there. So I'm curious because now we're dealing with two very aggressive decks that can really go above rate or a lot wider than maybe like a 4-card hand would normally indicate. So pretty, again, I'm curious because both of these decks, in fairness, primarily the Chane List has a couple of cards that not legal in Blitz for reasons, Ethan.
Yeah, for some reason. Hey, but Rosetta's still legal in all formats, and that might be the biggest abuser. But yeah, in this Chane List in particular here, yeah, we saw Chane just kind of do its thing when it was versus Arachne and really spiral out of control when that first bounding Demagon was banished. So now with the rest of the deck at bay here, with a little bit of sideboarding that Mark actually might bring into this matchup, I'm thinking he's definitely going to stick aggressive. Right, there are some defensive options you can bring in, like Fate Foreseen, that maybe cover up a breakpoint like Combustible Courier, which is really the only hit effect that you really have to worry about in that Dash matchup. So I imagine he might go a little bit more defensive with that ad, but overall, he's going to try to stay aggressive. He's going to try to force Dash down on those small hands first and really just take home the win through raw aggression.
Yeah, obviously no Husk available to the Chane player here. Either Ironweave's actually still quite nice in a pinch, right? If you satisfy those conditions, it's kind of like a heart and cross trap in some senses. The fact that Stubby Hammer is available to you as Chane is obviously extremely powerful. Plunder Run, a card that a lot of people get a ton of value out of in Blitz these days as well. So again, with that draw power, the ability to sort of keep going wide is very scary. But we saw what Dash could do, in a pretty stark manner in that first round. I think, and like you said, not a ton of like these sort of odd hits to sort of be concerned about. But that Hanabi Blaster coming in, once you've been boosting enough, was terrifying. The jump starts also looked really good, and were decidedly above rate with the hyperdrivers sort of being established beforehand. We were like a little bit confused to see Wes like take a slow first turn and go for like a Spark of Genius to pull out an item, and then we realized, okay, he's really wanting to go above and beyond on that sort of next turn. So there is a bit of build up potentially on the Dash side of things. I'm interested to see how much time you have to do that against an opponent like Chane, though.
Yeah, that's always going to be the question mark here. Do these aggressive decks just kind of go hard with these all red, very strong attacks from the get-go, or do they maybe stumble a bit, slow down naturally, either because their hands aren't just as aggressive, or if it's a bit with purpose, like Dash might setting up items, or Chane setting up Soul Shackle. So they could just go very aggressive. They could slow down a little bit and build up those bigger unlocked hands that go beyond what just 4 or 5 cards normally is for other decks. So I think this will be a pretty interesting one. Pretty exciting because the winners and losers of this, of course, move on in our bracket. The winner of this match will move on to a bit of a semi-finals, whereas the loser will drop down and actually face some of the players who've moved on in our losers bracket. We actually have an update for that as well. We had Elaine on Kasai move on up here. She was able to actually take down her opponent, Go Again Gaming, as on Azalea. So she's moved up now and will be facing the loser of this match. Red Zone did also take down, you already mentioned Levia losing today, and now of course we have to say it again because Levia did lose to Arachne in that losers bracket as well. So a couple updates on that front. But hey, for now, let's check out the game. And Uber, look what we got today. Like we were saying, a very fast, aggressive match at our hands here with Chane on the left, piloted by Mark Johnson, versus Dash on the right by Metrics Metagame. Wes Wilson bringing his homebrew to bear with this brand new Clash format that we're pioneering here. And both these decks have looked really strong off the bat, very aggressive. They lose a little bit moving over to Clash, right? Like you already mentioned, Chane's not getting access to that Carrion Husk. Dash doesn't get her pistol items or like her Teklo Pounder items. So, you know, they're playing on a bit of a different axis than normal, but the decks still look great.
I mean, I feel like Chane gets more, you know, in total, you know, with some of the cards he has access to that obviously are banned in other formats. He's still going to be pretty scary here. So pretty, you know, standard start here from Wes. He's able to deploy a Teklo core here and a Hyper Driver in play with the card in Arsenal. Plus, he's able to load up his pistol. So all good things as far as that turn one's concerned, and not giving the Chane player a chance to filter their hand feels pretty good as well.
Yeah, because a Chane's a deck that actually can have these very delicate hands where perhaps they're missing that blue, and the blue is going to be the enabler for their entire push, or maybe they're missing the non-attack, right? Because they're a Runeblade. Runeblade does care about those card types quite a bit to push their aggressive turns.
You can draw some stinkers, man. And you don't have access to, like, you know, Crown of Providence or anything, you know, in this format, so you have to just deal with it.
Yeah, and so it could be a pretty smart play here. Wes just saying, you don't get to filter, Mark. You're just going to play with the 4 that you drew, and maybe it's not good enough to really put you going second here and have a really aggressive turn. So we're about to see, because it seems like Mark's pretty pensive on this play. He's not snapping out anything too quickly here, so he must have a bit of a tough choice.
Shout out to Mo. He was supposed to be my partner, actually, at the sort of Vegas event, the Team Sealed event, and I got the Rona and had to pick up someone else. So we're this close to playing some games together. But big shout out to him and all of the hometown TCG Ascent crew, team.
Yeah, you know, an announcement just came through today by Team Ascent. They are officially partnered with MinMax Games. They even had this amazing little logo merger come out. Looks so sick. They're all about that clean aesthetic. So congrats to them. They're a great team. I really like hanging out with that crew. But we see Mark making a very proactive play here, popping Ebonfold on his turn 1 to banish a Seeds of Agony, which is going to let him draw a card, and then he's going to play out that Seeds immediately. And this is big for 2 reasons. Number 1, of course, it is going to enable a potential Rosetta swing at the end to actually come in with that extra arcane and possibly fulfill other attack requirements that are looking for non-attacks to be played. But for now, when a Bounding Demagon comes from hand, it actually doesn't gain that +1 that normally comes from when you play a non-attack and then follow up the Bounding from Banish Zone. So that was just a 3 damage, 1 arcane that Wes said, I take. He had no question on that front.
Yeah, and this is a card you don't often get to see, Tremor of Iarethel, I'm going to call it. And again, but you've banished something with Ebonfold, so you get the upside from this. So it's a nice little bookend, right? A 1 for 6, pretty decent rate, I'd like to think. And a chance to arsenal a card here. No occasion to go Rosetta, which is fine because there's no non-attack here. So we're chilling, get a good amount of damage, and Wes says, I'm taking it all.
Yeah. Well, he's actually got quite the setup, right? Like you mentioned with those items in play, Teklo Core is 2, Hyperdriver is a refund of 1, and he's going to go into this turn with a full 4 in hand plus Arsenal. You've got to be terrified, especially when a Goliath Gauntlet kicks things off on this yellow throttle now coming in, boosting for go again. So many little triggers coming in. There's that resolution for Hyperdriver as well. 7 go again presented, and that's without pitching a single card yet.
Yeah, as good as any target to pop those Goliath Gauntlet to buff up now. And again, there's plenty to work with here. No cards have been pitched yet to pay for any of this stuff because Teklo Core exists, and we know that Hyperdriver is pretty nice. Getting that refund, making this all so cheap. It's going to be 0 to 60 here. Again, bear in mind, for those keeping track at home, doesn't cost a thing. Comes in for 0 for 3 with that boost here. So 10 damage already represented here by Wes.
Yeah, it's got to be scary for Mark because it's very hard for him to track what else is coming in this turn. Nothing's been pitched yet. There's still 1 resource floating. So when Wes is sitting there with 3 cards in hand, Mark has no idea if those are going to cost another slew of zeros, if they're going to cost 1, maybe they're clunky and he has to pitch. There's just so much information being withheld so far. And another 0 boost card comes in right away, that T-Bone for 3, sniping that Snapdragons.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Snapdragons and the Stubby Hammers both could have been put in front here, and they have no durability. So unless there's like multiple T-Bones that can slurp all this up, and maybe even the Aether Iron Wind has Battle Worn. So this is just damage, but it's good damage, right? Put another 3 on the table. And here we go. Fate for Seeing comes in. So we did actually see Mark sideboarding some of these more defensive aspects into his deck, maybe not feeling like he'll be the beatdown at the start of the game.
Yeah, it's a bit of an inefficient block on a game that's very likely to be tight, right? He's blocking 4 on just 3 damage here. And I was interested why he did that, because Wes is still holding 2. There's likely more damage coming through, like we see now, on a payload coming in for 6 dominate. So potentially 1 bit of life there misblocked by Mark, but Wes just says, okay, whatever you block, I don't care. I'm throwing my hand down anyway. The damage is damage, and holy moly, was it a good rate this turn.
I like presenting 19 damage. That feels pretty good, especially on that sort of turn 1. I have to see now what the Chane player... I mean, again, when Chane starts to block, that's when you get pretty unhappy. But going down to 4 here may not seem the worst. It really depends. It can depend on a lot about what comes off on this shackle. Again, what kind of sort of threat density Mo actually is dealing with here. You know that obviously this Dash player is going to be able to replicate this kind of turn pretty comfortably when it comes back around, because their Teklo core is still going to be around. The Hyperdrive is going to be refunding resources. There's obviously a Heart and Cross Trap still available to be used. So there's no guarantee that it gets any easier from here on out for the Chane players. So figuring out how to maybe start to force this Dash to part with some of those cards may be priority number 1.
Yeah, and you see how fast this has turned out just because Wes started with that Teklo in play. It almost makes you wonder if maybe in this matchup you start with Teklo just regardless, because it unlocks so much aggression from the get-go, because Mark doesn't have these Soul Shackles built up yet to really counter this pressure.
Yep.
So Wes just started super strong. Mark, unfortunately, just really on the back foot, ending this turn cycle at 5, and also using up all his block on his armor there, and even losing 1 extra HP. Didn't necessarily need to on that Fate for Scene. So, gotta be shaking his boots a little bit.
Yeah, of course. We don't have an RB Blaster in this matchup, right? We just have the Teklo Plasma Pistol. Obviously, no chance to really use that unless you want to, I guess, pop Achilles Accelerator after payload. Not necessary. It's not going to win you the game. So that pistol remains loaded, and Wes can rely on that later on. The stubbies have been popped, though, Ethan.
Ooh, yeah. Well, it's unfortunately, I don't think going to amount to too much. Maybe just +2 on this turn cycle, because there's no attack in the banish zone, and Mark's hand is only 4. And Chane doesn't really operate off of 0 costs. He needs to pitch something to make his turn go off. So there's that first blue being pitched, that first 0 cost non-attack being played out, and then Shrilla's Skullform blue coming in, getting that Stubbies proc. Also, of course, Aura created with Soul Shackle, so it's coming in for a total of 6 physical, 1 arcane, but there's only 1 card left in Mo's hand. So, this Stubbies is at max just 2 on this turn cycle. Not huge.
All of this work to basically present the equivalent of a red Shrill of Skullform in terms of raw damage. So, a total of 7 here. This is definitely going to, I always inclined now to block this up a little bit, able to put 4 in front of that, giving up the headpiece, and he's thinking, okay, now I'm sitting in a pretty comfortable life. Look at my opponent. While they do have Go Again, they do have the dreaded Rosetta Thorn that is turned on. You're going to see Riftbind come in first, and that's going to go to 4 here based on the number of non-attacks that have been played prior, which for those keeping track at home is 1.
Yeah, so it's actually played from hand, so it wouldn't look for that buff regardless. We're seeing Chane...
it's not from the banish zone, sorry.
No, we're seeing Chane kind of just play from hand. He hasn't had time to ramp up these shackles yet, so these cards are not great rate. And Mark tried to force it. He tried to throw out that Stubby's Hammer to push the damage a little bit more in his favor, but it's not looking huge. He demanded... I guess not demanded blocks. Wes just said, my hand isn't good enough, so he gave him some blocks. And that's just smart use regardless by this Dash player, because, hey, if the hand didn't push insane amounts of damage, then might as well save your life so that you're not leaking and dying to some weird Rosetta damage later in the game just because you're greedy in a turn cycle like this. So I like to see that play out of Wes.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the risk, of course, of Chane starting to hit things off his shackles, but that hasn't really been a factor so far. And hey, presenting a red throttle here definitely feels pretty darn good. With, of course, the Go Again, as the boost reveals a 0 to 60.
Yep, 0 to 60. That one is going to say bye-bye. I think it was only a blue anyway, but this throttle comes in big for 6 damage. And once again, Wes has just not even pitched a card yet to get this done. So that last card in hand could either be another 0, could be a 1 cost, and he could still end the chain with that pistol swing, that little pistol whip right at the end. And for Mark at 4 life, or I guess maybe 5 life, sorry. That is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, with one floating here, I mean, there's always the potential of like Heart and Cross Strap getting thrown if that's like a more expensive
Right.
card in hand here. But hey, we like 1 for 6 that with that refund with the Hyperdriver. That feels pretty darn good with Go Again. And Chane is definitely going to start to struggle to deal with that level of value when he on his own turn cycles is really not able to present anything sort of comparable here. So a couple cards turn sideways here. So we're definitely expecting a 2-card block here from Mo, which is significant considering this Chane is playing off his arsenal as well.
Mm-hmm.
So half the cards that he will have access to, not counting the shackle banishes, of course, will potentially be put in front of this block because Mo has to respect the plasma pistol coming in after for 2 damage.
Yeah, and when you see Chane just look at, like you said, just turn those cards sideways, we expect the 2-card block coming out of that. That is probably not what Mark was hoping this turn cycle would look like because Wes did throw down those 2 cards readily blocking. Mark would have hoped for, okay, maybe it's just an item arsenal pass turn and I can buy my way back into this game. But no, we're seeing just long thought process on this just to end up blocking 4. That's 2 cards to block 4. Oof, that is.
He's giving a card here. Oh God.
Oh, and then coming and presenting lethal again off of that Hyperdriver resource, throwing in high speed impact for 4, followed up by most likely that pistol right at the end as well. So poor Mark just not getting the agency he wants to with these blocks that are being demanded.
Yeah, and again, now with no cards in hand, you can kind of banish whatever you like. If you don't have the resources to pay for them, they're going to sit there and your blood debt actually becomes a consideration.
Oh no!
At some point here. So we got 2 cards to banish. Now, as a Levia player, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with the Damocles sword that can be represented by some of these blood debt cards at times, right? Fortunately, you can get seeds out, right? You can just play it.
Oh, at least he can do that, but that Riftbind is stuck, and it's not even a good one. It's a blue that's just stuck there in the banish zone. So poor Mark, he's just taking a little bit of self-damage, putting himself down to 1, no choice in the matter, and now facing down a dash that kept 4 cards in hand, that popped Heart and Cross Strap, and is now leading off with a breakpoint attack, Yellow Throttle. It's rough.
Yeah, again, breakpoint, and definitely it's asking for 2 cards, right? That's another way of putting it here. And the Chane is being forced to part with them. Obviously, it 1 on table here. That Riftbind, if that Riftbind doesn't get out of banish, it's just curtains for this guy. It just doesn't have a way to get rid of it. So Rotary Ram here going to be able to boost the next Mechanologist attack action card by 3. It goes back in the deck, which is always nice, but again, it's what comes after it that we should fear if you Chane.
Yeah, that's cute. Go ahead, put that back in your deck, but I don't think we're seeing a single turn out of this game, to be honest.
It's a 0-60 here. Oh my goodness.
Insult to injury. Wes is just showing resources on the table, just presenting, oh yeah, I'll be able to shoot pistol, pop Achilles, shoot pistol, just to make sure you die. And that's the fist bump. It is over. So congrats to Wes. He really barreled down, not even bringing the plasma barrel shotgun, but just barreled over that Chane opponent. But hey, that's okay. Mark Johnson is not out of it yet. He's going to be moving down to the losers bracket, where he's going to be playing against Kasai. So Mark still in it, Elaine still in it, but for now, we are looking at Wes moving on to this round 3 that we'll get to next weekend. So congrats to him, but what did you think about that game overall?
Yeah, so look, I think Chane's strengths are unchanged from other formats, right? He absolutely needs a little bit of time to get going, especially if he really wants to gain access to the ability to go above rate on a regular basis. And when your opponent, I think you're on Shackle 2 and your opponent's making you give up all your cards, that feels pretty bad. That's when, we don't really talk about Blood Debt being like as much of a threat to Chane in many cases as opposed to something like Levia, but it's relevant here in a smaller life format when your opponent is saying, I'll take that card and that card and that card and keep that pressure on. And there's no Hanabi Blaster here, right? So it's almost as if Wes is expecting a shorter game, one where he wants to be able to just chip in for that 2 damage at some point and ask for a whole card with just the plasma pistol or in that case, right, just winning the game. The dash deck is... It still feels unbelievably powerful. Yeah. And I love the hyperdrivers here, right? With the Goliath Gauntlet, you're getting these huge attacks that are getting discounted. You're getting a lot of value out of that Tekla core that starts on board here. You almost have more resources than you know what to do with. And that's just something that Chane just couldn't deal with in that game.
Hey, he did it. He pulled through and is making Dash look like potentially the stronger deck in this format. But maybe the game would have been different if Chane hit a little bit luckier on those banishes, because he kind of inversed it. he banished when he didn't need to, took some of his own life away, compared to when he could have really just gone off to the races from banish on even that first cycle. So still, I think 2 very strong decks in the format, and I'm eager to see more of them because we've got more Clash games coming. So be sure to stick around because we've got another matchup coming out tomorrow. It'll be pretty exciting. Bravo versus Icelander, 2 other incredible pilots behind them as well.
Yeah, looking forward to those games. And of course, in the lower bracket, Chane versus Kasai, gonna be fun now to see how it deals with maybe more mid-rangey decks. So can't wait for that, Ethan. I'll see you nerds tomorrow. It's gonna be a great game.
Cheers.